All right. Are you looking to build content so that you can get more sales either off Amazon or you can point people to your Amazon listing? I know it's a thing a lot of people are looking to do of build up a content library so that they can build sales off Amazon or at least have at least more feeling of control over the traffic they're getting and where it goes. So it's something I personally am still trying to work through myself. So I'm really excited to have here with me someone today who knows a lot about content and amplifying it out into multiple places so that over time you can build a list, you can have traffic to send people to your offers. So I'm excited to have Toni Anderson with me today. Toni, thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, it's a pleasure. It's a pleasure to have. So just to give a little context, you and I are both actually planners for e-commerce events.
Yes.
So you're with Seller Summit, and Seller Summit is how Brand Accelerator Live even happened. So basically, I met Scott Volker at Seller Summit, and that's how we ended up having Brand Accelerator Live, because we're like, well, let's do something, not a copycat, of course, but something that's kind of serving a slightly different audience. So thank you for putting together Seller Summit, and I love attending live events, and yours is definitely one I think people should check out.
Well, thanks. I figure you saw me running around like a crazy person and you said, I want that life. Let me do that too, right?
Yes, that's a funny thing. It brought me back memories because I used to, as you well know, and I think some people listening to this might know, but in case they don't know, I used to work in hotels at a convention center in Orlando. And I liked that kind of putting the pieces of the puzzle together. And I kind of miss that in some ways. So that running around crazy, and then I get to do my own running around crazy in September. And then, attending events like yours where I just get to enjoy it. But
Yes.
It's fun when you actually are the one putting it together.
I'm looking forward to Brand Accelerator because I won't be running around like a crazy person. So I can't wait.
Yeah. And you'll be speaking on this very topic here that we're talking about, of amplifying your content, really to get it out in organic channels and to grow an audience. So just so everyone understands a little bit more about your background and not necessarily just planning events, but in general with, blogs and creating audiences and how that relates to e-commerce. Can you tell us a little bit about your background?
Yeah, so I started out blogging. I'm actually not even an event planner. I don't have a background in hotels. But I actually started out blogging in 2006. So back before there were any places to amplify your content. The only way you could amplify your content was to comment on other people's blogs, which is today seems very foreign to most people. So I started out blogging, and I knew it was an avenue to generate income, but I wasn't quite sure. Back then, there weren't any even resources on like how to make money from a blog or how to make money from content, or but I like to write, and I felt like I had things to share to people. So I started the blog, and over time grew it, and then realized like, hey, I have all this content. How do I make money from it? Mm-hmm. So sort of dove into the world of affiliate marketing and display advertising and sort of brand ambassadorship. And then did that for a really long time, sort of morphed into some consulting for big brands who wanted to learn how to do the same thing, because you have these big corporations that really want to reach moms or kids or certain demographics, but they're not great at that because they're sitting in their offices in New York City, and, a bunch of 25-year-old ad execs marketing to 45-year-old moms doesn't really translate very well all the time. Right. So I did a lot of consulting because my audience has always been marketing to moms and families and things like that. And then met Steve Chu, who I work with on Seller Summit, and learned about this world of e-commerce and thought, well, I've already done the hard part. I built the audience. Why don't I sell my own products to them as opposed to affiliate marketing where I'm getting 5%, 7%, 10%, which can be very lucrative for sure. Mm-hmm. But when you own that customer and then you can sell directly to them, you have a big advantage over, hoping they find you on the internet or hoping they find you on Amazon. And, obviously there's people that are very, very successful at doing that. So I'm not knocking that at all, but I sort of felt like e-commerce was a natural transition for me because I already had an audience to sell to.
Yeah. And that's so true, is that everyone wants to have their audience because, especially for a lot of people listening are primarily Amazon, and Amazon owns the customer, and they make that very clear to you in the terms of service. You can't, market to them outside of ads,
Right.
basically. So,
Yeah.
that's something that's so attractive to people, but people are so nervous about the idea of doing it. And I don't know if it's just you don't see the results right away or whatever it is. So can you help people walk through what is the vision of what it would look like if you started a content program, what you're going to get to, and kind of what would be those initial steps you should take?
Well, I think it's tough. So I love when you listen to people are like, it's so easy. Just do these
Right.
3 steps and you will have 1 million visitors in the next month. I mean, that's definitely not the case. So I think if you want to take a content marketing strategy, you need to be in it for the long haul. This
Mm-hmm.
is definitely not a get rich quick overnight, have your listings appear number 1 in Google, kind of thing like that. But I think the vision would be to craft content around your specific product. And one of the things I'm probably going to hit on a little bit at Brand Accelerator is that I've met so many people over the past 4 or 5 years in e-commerce that said, my product doesn't lend itself to content, right?
Mm.
And actually, there's a guy that I actually met on an airplane randomly that sells pool parts, right?
Mm.
And I was in the middle of remodeling my pool. So I was like, we need to be best friends so I can get a discount code from you to buy these pool parts because I'm spending way too much money. And, he and I started talking, and this is before I really got into talking a lot to e-commerce people about content. And he was telling me how their main channel of driving sales was YouTube. And they went on YouTube and created videos on how to repair your pool. So, is your salt generator out? Here's how you replace the panel, right? And they would do this whole tutorial on how you as a homeowner could go in and replace your or your salt panel generator, whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
And then, at the end, they happen to sell that panel, right? So, and it's a fraction of the cost of having someone come to your house and, so they were hitting those DIY homeowners that,
Mm-hmm.
have a little bit of enough knowledge to watch a video and be able to implement it, and sort of appealing to their, hey, I can do this on my own. I'll save $1,000 so I don't have to pay a pool guy to come out.
Mm-hmm.
And it's an easy path to just buying that product because, they showed me how to do it. Now, is it possible that someone's going to watch that video and then go on Amazon and try to save $10? Sure, that's always possible, right? But I think a lot of people want to use whatever they're talking about directly because it's a path. It's very easy. And that's how they generated a significant amount of traffic and sales from making these tutorial videos. So after I met him, and I wish I could remember his name, but after I met him, it sort of hit me that, there's not many products that you couldn't do that with. There's not many, and I'm sure there are definitely some out there that it's just, content is not probably going to work for you. But I think for most items, you can figure out a way to engage your customer and provide value to them in a way that they're going to want to then buy from you. I don't know if you've had Natalie Mounter on here before, but she sells wedding bling, rhinestones.
Oh yeah, I know Natalie well. She's not been on this, but I should really reach out to her.
Yeah, she'd be a great one. But she sells blingy rhinestones, right? So she does Facebook videos and tutorials, just content with images on how to take her products and make napkin rings, embellish your wedding invitations. So it's creating an easy path for someone to say, hey, you've just showed me how to do this. You've made it really easy for me to buy from you because the link is right there. I don't have to go search for this specific type of thing somewhere else. So, so I think that's what you have to think about first is what are you selling? And then what does your customer need from that you can provide in content? So like if you sell, let's just say small kitchen appliances, right? Coffee makers, measuring things, whatever, maybe you're going to talk about food, right? You're going to talk about recipes. So where people can see those recipes, you're going to draw in your customer through valuable content. And then in there, you happen to talk about your products, right? And then it's a path for them to purchase from you. So that would be my first step, is just thinking about what your customer needs from you to help them use their product or engage with your product. A company that does it totally different is Chubbies. I don't know if you follow Chubbies. You're a little outside their demographic.
Oh, it's an underwear company, right?
They're shorts. Shorts. Yeah.
Yes.
And if you I tell everybody, sign up for their email list, even if you will never buy a pair of their shorts, because their marketing is, people are proud to wear Chubbies. And they're to me, they're hideous. They're shorts for the something-year-old male. They're the shorter shorts. Like, I'm just like, no, nobody should be wearing these. But their emails suck me in, and they're funny, they're engaging, and people are on Instagram all day long taking pictures of themselves in Chubbies and tagging them and generating the content for them. I mean, Chubbies isn't really doing anything. They write great copy, but they're not doing a whole lot except for grabbing their customers' stuff. I mean, they've kind of reversed it, right? Where now the customers are advertising for them,
Right.
because they're putting, great content of these themselves out there, jumping off a dock or, on the boat on the weekend with a beer. And the guy's like, I mean, it's not even like a fit model, right? It's like an overweight, hairy dude wearing a pair of Chubbies, but everybody loves it. But they've done a good job of sort of who's their customer, what do they like? And then they write to them. Their language in their emails is like nothing that I would ever write myself, but for the people that buy Chubbies, that's perfect, right? So kind of honing in on who your customer is like the number one thing I think you need to do first. Because if you sell pool repair equipment and you're marketing to like the executive, they're probably not going to DIY their pool, right? They're probably just going to hire the pool company. So they're out there marketing to people who wear cargo khakis and flip-flops and out there wanting to fix their own pool. So that would be number one.
So basically identifying your core customer and what are the things that would be of interest to them. So then how do you find ideas of what to talk about? Like maybe you have a general concept of what it might be, like recipes or DIY stuff, but then how do you find what they'd be searching for?
I mean, I would definitely use some search tools. I mean, you can use free tools on Google. You can use like a keyword search tool like Ahrefs. That's the one that we use. There's other ones. But I would start looking at, so this is, say, I'm trying to think of something. Say you sell, I don't know, canisters for the kitchen, right? That holds flour. So you would search for like whatever that product is. And you probably have this if you're doing ads on Amazon. You probably have some other keyword terms that people search and find you. So then I would start putting those in and seeing what comes up as well. So maybe people that search for that are always looking for kitchen organization, right? Maybe they're very much into like the minimalist kitchen, things like that. So then you think, oh, well, maybe I need to go in that route, like organizing, planning, all that stuff. And then, so that's where your content goes. But I will say sometimes it's a matter of hit or miss, because when I got started with my jewelry, I was all about like, I'm going to take the fashion angle. I'm going to like pair outfits with the jewelry and show you how you can wear stuff. My audience did not care at all about fashion. They cared about the oils that you put in the jewelry, right? They wanted blends and, what helps my kids sit still at school. And, they wanted that type of information. So I did, I don't know. I spent way too much time creating like boards of outfits and things like that. And then I realized they don't open those emails. But when I tell you the summer allergy blend email, that one had a 42% open rate, right?
Really?
Like, yeah. So that's the one that was engaging my customer. So, and I test a lot of it on the customers I already have. So if you have the ability already to email your customers, which I know on Amazon you don't, but if you have your own sales channel, I would test a lot in email and just see like what emails got the most engagement and open rates, which I know is hard if you don't have that already, but you can do the same thing by just putting the content out there and seeing what engages people and what doesn't.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it probably wouldn't be the best strategy, but you could even like just run like a Google ad, like, search ad, and see like test different titles and see what's working, because then at least you're getting it out there, and it's not the point of making it profitable, but to at least get data. And I like your idea, which I never even thought of going into search term report to then look for ideas for content off Amazon, because sometimes I'll even see it's like gift ideas for boss who's leaving the country or something random.
Right.
I don't even know how this came up in Amazon, but especially auto campaigns, because it's so broad.
Yes.
You can see what people are searching for. And then if they're buying, then it must be worthwhile. So then, okay, so you've tested a few things. And then how do you know it's successful? And that's the one thing I think a lot of people have this hang up about is on Amazon, you get borderline instant feedback that if you're getting at least a sale in a few days, you probably have something going right when you launch a new product. Whereas with content, it could just be, is it a big party or is it crickets at first?
It's definitely crickets. I mean, there's always the potential that something goes viral for you, right?
Right.
You put out a YouTube video, it's just hilariously funny, or you're horrible, right? So it goes viral for not a great reason, but they're like, this is the worst person ever on video. Or you put out something on Facebook and people think it's hilarious and it gets shared, or, that kind of thing. But I think be prepared for crickets.
Right.
And I think you have to think of it as it's definitely the long game, right? And for me, always with content, it's really never to get that immediate sale. I just want their email, because once I have their email, I can get them in my funnel that I've created, that I own, and I can continue to market to them for, I have a 6-month window for these people. So when they get in my funnel, they get 6 months of emails from me. And after 6 months, if they have shown like zero interest, like they're not even opening the emails anymore, they're not, clicking through to see anything, then I get them off the list, because I don't want to pay for them to be on my list. But after 6 months, if they've made a purchase, or if they've even clicked through and viewed some things, because you can see all that in your email provider, then for me, that's worth it, right? Because I know eventually on my list, they're going to buy from me at some point. If I can get them opening emails. And of course, that's a whole nother topic of like, you can get an email person on here, get someone from Klaviyo on here, to Alexandra, to talk about how to get people to open and read those emails. But to me, the goal is to get them on my list, because then I own them. And I don't have to worry about Amazon. I don't have to worry about a hijacker. I don't have to worry about Amazon, pulling me off something, or, and I've had like every horror story on Amazon possible. So for me, I don't, I want them to be in my email account, and that's all I care about.
That totally makes sense. Now, you said you have a 6-month sequence. Like, is that like an auto sequence once they join, or is that you're sending them like weekly? So what is daunting to people, and some people, I already know the answer to the question I'm about to ask, but I want to say it.
Okay.
Do you have to start off with 6 months worth of auto sequences, or can you add them as you go?
You can absolutely add them as you go. But what I did, because this fits my personality, is that I actually sat down with a giant stack of color-coded Post-it notes. And I used my keyword information, because the keyword information is still really relevant, right? Because it is how people are looking and finding you. So the questions are still relevant to the people that are already on your list, right? So maybe they found you because they're looking for one thing, but then they do have a boss that's leaving the country, or a coworker, right? And so that will cause them to open an email, because that's still in the realm of what your people are interested in. So I sat down and I wrote, I think 40 some emails. And I literally locked myself in my office. I'm not kidding.
Oh my gosh.
I shut off my phone. I shut off social media. I shut off email. And for 2 days, I wrote 42 emails. And some of the emails were just like, we're having a sale email, right? And so I scheduled out sales and promo codes and things like that. Some of them were, relevant to, hey, here's a recipe. Hey, here's a printable. Hey, finding content that they would like. And then you do all that, and then you realize that like 4 of your emails suck, right? And no one's opening them, and the title's terrible. So you can always go in and edit them. I would say have a month of content ready to go. And that way you're not like waking up one morning and like, oh God, I haven't emailed them in a week. Because one of the things about email, and everyone will tell you, is you have to have consistency there. Like you can't email them and then 5 months later show up back in their inbox. They're not going to remember you, know who you are. And it doesn't make sense to do all the work of creating the content to not then continue to engage them. So, one of my more popular emails that I always do is that I actually find compatible products that I don't sell that aren't my competitors. So, I sell jewelry. I will never sell scarves. Right. So, I had one email that did super popular in December, where I did, 10 stocking stuffers for under $25. Well, 5 of those stocking stuffers were my own products.
Sure.
And 5 of them were people that will never compete against me. So, but people love that got shared, that went everywhere, because they're like, oh yeah, stocking stuffers, $25, like, teacher gifts, whatever they wanted to, and I rephrased it in a couple different places, like, hey, here's teacher gifts. Hey, here's this gift, it's the same exact content, just with different titles and images. Right. So, but, things like that you can do to engage your people. But I would have a month of content for sure, unless you love to fly by the seat of your pants. If you love to fly by the seat of your pants, write 2 emails and hit send, right? But I don't think it's worth it to go through most people don't like to create content, or they're paying for the content. So if you're paying someone to write for you, or if you're spending, couple hours writing up a really good piece of content, you don't want to then leave people hanging after you get them.
Right. So, to your point, it's about consistency. So it doesn't necessarily mean you have to have a year's worth of content up and running, but you at least should have something so you can be consistent so that you're not necessarily under the gun. Right. And that's something I've done, is hired someone to write content, write an email, and then it's just creating the process. So what is your workflow to get all this stuff done? Because I think that's another hang up people have, is like, I'm so busy. But the reality is, make time for something. We will find time.
Well, I think one thing that I didn't say earlier, and I think is important, is that when we talk about content, we've got actual blog posts or, content on the web that sits on your website, wherever it says. Then we have like Facebook content. We've got Instagram content. We've got YouTube content. We've got Snapchat if you want to get on Snapchat. There's podcasts, right? There's all sorts of mediums for this content. And while I think it's important to own your channel everywhere, like you should have an Instagram account, you should have a Facebook page, you should probably have a YouTube channel. I realize it is absolutely impossible to maintain all those the same. And to be honest, like some products just don't lend, like you're not going to get pool repair traffic off Instagram. You're just not.
Right.
But should you have a page that links to your YouTube channel and says, hey, this is what we do. We help make your pool beautiful, whatever, so maybe YouTube just does not work for what you do because it's so boring. Like you sell auto parts, but not something that repairs your car, right? It's like something like we sell Windex and leather cleaner, right? So you don't need to have a bunch of videos on how to Windex a car window. Everyone knows. But should you own the channel and have a promo video for your store? Sure. And, just make sure you own all your properties. But I think the first thing people need to understand is, I think they think I can't do Pinterest, Facebook, Instagram. That's like, no, I don't have time for that. So figure out where your customers are and then hone in on like 1 to 2 channels. I think you have to have that content piece. You have to have a landing page for people to go to. But after that, figure out like, is it best on Instagram? Is it best on Facebook? Is this like a Pinterest thing? Maybe if you're in weddings, you got to be on Pinterest, travel, things like that. So I think that's the first part that I should have said way early on, because people have probably been like, nope, can't do it. So I start always with the content. So whether you're having someone write it for you or you're writing it yourself, and I try to make that content really good, because I think SEO matters too. And if you can be found organically, that's a really big deal, because that's totally free. And once you write the content, you don't have to do anything. And obviously this is an SEO talk. So, but there are definitely a lot of really great SEO people that you can follow and, change a little bit how you write to make that work for you. So I start with the piece of content, and then I take that content and figure out how it can go to other channels. So that content always goes in an email, always. Now, whether the whole thing goes in an email, or whether a truncated version of that goes in an email, depends on how long it is. Is this something that people are likely to read in an email and they don't really need anything else? Or is it like a teaser and then they're going to click through? So I always take the content and put it in an email, and you don't have to do really any work for that. And then I decide, okay, now, is it a step-by-step how-to article, right? So that's the next thing. Well, if it's a step-by-step how-to article, that's really easy to turn into a YouTube video, because all you need to do is you just make a slideshow, right? And you add your own voice, or you add a voiceover, and that can go on YouTube very easy. And people go to YouTube for how-to. So I take like, what's the content about, and then how to, so maybe it's not a step-by-step. Maybe it's just like a visually amazing, like this is a tablescape, right, for a wedding, and you've used a lot of your own wedding products in there. Well, then that definitely needs to go on Instagram and Pinterest, right? Like, you make sure that you have, visual. So you make sure you get your Instagram image, the square image, and you make sure you have your Pinterest image, which is your vertical image, right? So, so you take that core content and you really think like, where's this going to go next? It's probably not going to go everywhere, but it will go in a couple places. So that would be the next step, is sort of deciding where it needs to go, and then following the rules of those platforms or the guidelines of those platforms to make sure it does well, because you don't want to throw up, a horizontal image or a vertical image that's totally cropped to go on Instagram, right? Because then no one will see. You're probably cutting out your own products.
True. Yeah.
But that's really simple because you can take the same picture. And I have a girl who does all my images. And so I have her do 4 image sizes for every single thing she does for me. So that way, and sometimes I might not need it, but I know that if I want to use it on Instagram, I want to use it somewhere else, I just pull it up in my Google Drive, right? And I have the ability to use it right then.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's the thing, is just having a system, whether it's, here's my 4 sizes, or here's how email goes out. And then I like to personally figure it out myself and then kind of write the sheet music on how to do it and give it off to someone else, because it doesn't have to fall all on us. You can, if you have a virtual assistant, you can hire them to do that. You can go and free up and hire someone, or Upwork. I mean, I think too often people get in their own way of like, I'm the only one that could possibly do that.
Right.
Maybe you're the one to write the content. Maybe you're not. Maybe you're the one to send it out, but you probably shouldn't be. Someone else should probably at least do the buttons of posting it.
Well, and I will say a couple things that you want to think about is that if you're not taking your own images if you're not doing your product photos, you probably shouldn't be doing your images for any sort of content marketing. And you can have the person that's doing your product, and that's the thing that we sort of did inadvertently when we started selling. Like, I'm sure it wasn't inadvertent because that's what I do, but I didn't think about this like out loud, where we had the girl who did all of our product photos take about 1,000 photos. And we had our Amazon specific, white background, but we had, of those 1,000 photos, probably 700 of them were lifestyle in all shapes and sizes.
Oh, wow.
So people wearing it, people sitting, but not on a white background. So that way these images are 4 years old on some of our products. I'm still using those images today.
Right.
And I paid once, right?
Right.
And once she had the products, it's not hard for her, our photographer, to switch it up a little bit. And we'd already hired a model to wear the product. So it's not asking a whole lot for her to do 6 more shots, right? Well, now sit by the pool. Now do this, now do that. So I would definitely say if you're not the person taking your photos now, you're probably not the best person to be doing that for any content, because the images really do matter these days. So unless you're a photographer or you're really great at doing your product photos, I would just, whenever you get those photos taken, just add lifestyle shots in there. That's really easy. And the cost is not going to cost you that much more to have that done.
Yeah, that's a good point, because a photographer might be like, $100 or $200 an hour or whatever the case is for a local photographer in your area.
Right.
And just kind of write out, here's the shots I want by the pool, especially if it's pool equipment.
Yeah.
If it's something else, it's just something relevant. If it's kitchen related, in the kitchen, or if it's, auto related near a car or something, but just kind of plan that out ahead of time so you can best use that time with them. But just have the photographer take a bunch of pictures. And to your point, you could probably even use the same picture 6 months later and no one's going to remember.
Absolutely. And, if you have a VA, they can do all that cropping. They can do all of that for you. And there are so many, even on every platform. If you go on Instagram, if you go on Pinterest, if you go on Facebook, they have a whole guidebook on what things need to look like. Mm-hmm. Best practices. So you don't even have to pay for a course for these people. You don't have to send them through anything. You can just say, hey, go to the Pinterest best practices, 45-page PDF, read through this, and then implement this when you're creating the stuff for Pinterest. And same thing with Instagram, Facebook, all those things. They don't need to go through some expensive, be an Instagram expert,
Yeah, exactly. And the good news is, especially if you're first starting out, because it's likely to be crickets, it's not like if they mess it up, it's going to be like, oh my God, it's gonna be so embarrassing. Everyone's going to know.
Yeah.
It's actually good because you can get the kinks out when no one's necessarily watching, so that when more people are watching, because over time you build an audience, then everything will be buttoned up more.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think too, because I know a lot of people think I'm not a writer. I don't know how to find a writer. And that is tough. Like, people ask me all the time, how do I find writers? Most of the writers that I've ever hired, and I've hired a lot of writers for my products and for my website, I get them from people that are my fans. So if there is someone who's purchased 3 times from you, right? Chances are they're a pretty big fan. And they probably know a lot about what you sell, right? They, so I've approached them and I would say, hey, some of these people will even do it for free product in exchange. Some people, I mean, I do think you need to pay people to get good quality content, but
Right.
some of these super fans will do it for free if they know that they're going to get, a constant flow of your scarf collection or your crazy sock collection, whatever it is. But some of those people are the best because they are truly because for me, I'm not my customer of my product. So I struggle with writing content and I have to get help. I have to read other articles. So for me, I struggle a lot with that. But for people that buy my products religiously, they don't struggle at all. They know exactly what they want to read about and they can write, and it usually needs editing, right? So maybe that's where your VA can come in and, because they don't know how to write for the web. They don't know short paragraphs and lots of bold and bullet points, and they don't really understand a lot of the content side of it and copywriting, but they can give you that core piece of content that one is going to be super relevant. And then two is going to be right on target with what people want from you because they're giving it to you and they're your customer.
Yeah. And that makes so much sense because if you find people that are, as Pat Flynn would say, super fans, they can create the content for you. Now, if you don't have those, I mean, you can get creative. You can go on Upwork or Fiverr or FreeUp or someplace and find people, but you could also just ask around. Like, I'm sure there's English majors at your local community college that are looking for experience so that they can one day be a professional writer. And so, if you're saying, I'll pay you $20 an article or something, they probably jump all over it because it's fun money for them or something,
Yeah. Pizza and beer money. They can.
Yeah, exactly. And if you need somebody to edit stuff, I mean, there's retired English teachers in every town that are looking for something to do.
Yep.
And you just probably have to tell them, okay, we're not doing Shakespeare here. It's, web. So more of a fourth grade level. Is that a fair statement, right?
Yes.
For like a fourth grade level?
Yes. It's hard as someone who did a lot of writing in college and to then switch to blog writing. I'm like, oh, I don't like the way it sounds, but Google does and your readers do for sure. So you definitely have to have a little mindset shift in that. And then one other thing I wanted to add on for these people that are just not writers is that if you're not a writer, but you're amazing either on audio or on camera, you don't have to write the content. So if you can get, and you and I both know people who can get on a camera and talk for 15 minutes so passionately about the most boring things, but at the end you're fired up and you're like, yes, I want to do whatever this is.
I want to take action.
Yes, exactly. And maybe, and not everybody is a writer, for sure. Not everybody is a writer, and that's totally fine. But not everybody's great on video. And I'm definitely not in the camp of everybody needs to be doing video. No, some people, please never do video. You're terrible. And that's okay because you're probably really good at something else. Right. But I think everyone needs to try it. And if you're like, this leaves me so uncomfortable, I can't eat for 3 days afterwards, whatever, fine. But if you're great on video and you can talk about things related to your product all day long, then get on video and then get an editor to edit those videos to put on all the platforms, and then get someone who can transcribe your video into content. So you can reverse it the other way. So if you're not great at writing, but you love to talk, you can just talk and have people take that information and put that into content. Because I do think you need to have the written content somewhere so people can land on it. Land on that page with your email sign up, with the call to action. It's hard to have a call to action on Instagram, right? They got to click through and, it's not super convenient. I mean, Instagram's come leaps and bounds from when we first started on there. It's not as easy to have a call to action in YouTube, although you can definitely do it and it's getting better. Every platform's getting much better in letting you have call to actions, but you can't pixel someone on YouTube unless that's changed. But as soon as someone lands on that written content that you own, you can pixel them too. So then we're going to, you can retarget and all that jazz. So if you can't write the content, but you can do video, you can take that video content into written content very easily. And you can have that done overseas. There's people here that'll transcribe for you. And then all you need is someone to clean it up and take out all of your video isms that don't translate quite as well into the written word.
Right, exactly. Because sometimes when we're talking in video or just in normal conversation, it's not the exact word structure and order that you would expect in writing. But to your point, somebody can clean that up. And it doesn't have to be you. And once you get a sense of what the voice is and what it looks like, you don't even necessarily have to read everything necessarily. And theoretically, you don't even have to read any of it if you trust that the people are getting done
Right.
what they're supposed to get done. And to your point, you're also, over time, you mentioned pixeling, and that's a good point too, is that, there's a few audiences you're building. There's audience of customers, which is what you ultimately want. But if you backtrack from there, there's people that are on your email list, which you own that, so you can point them wherever you want. But then there's also the pixeled audience. So it's like the people that are aware of you, but they just haven't raised their hand enough to go down that funnel of getting on an email list or something else. But like if they've read content and you run ads to them, they're going to be a lot warmer than if you just ran ads to the general public.
Right. And
Yeah.
you think too, if you can get them on your site and get them on your list, even if your list is 500 people, right? That's not small for an e-commerce product, but that's not going to let you retire.
Right.
Unless you're selling Teslas, and then maybe it will. But,
right.
So you have these 500 people. Well, you can take those 500 emails and you can create, well, they're different, but lookalike audiences in Facebook. You can create act-alike audiences on Pinterest. So you can take the people that you know are already your people, and then Pinterest and Facebook will find other people that are very similar to them, right? And so then your targeting gets more concentrated into people that are more likely to buy from you. So you're not wasting a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you might still be wasting money, but you never know.
Right. But that's another good point, is you can do the lookalike audiences and wherever the platform calls it, but they'll find people that are similar to the ones you already have. And the more people you have over time, the more they can find better lookalike audiences. So yeah, that's a very good point. So just to sum it all up, it's basically figure out who your current customer is. Use data you already have to figure out what kind of things they're looking for, and then start giving them what they want in the channels they want, knowing it's a long-term thing, but it could be a very successful thing for your business, especially because, in 5 years from now, we don't know what's going to be happening with Amazon, but if you've built this asset over 5 years, this could be a lot.
Right. Well, and I think a perfect example, and I know you just had him on the podcast, is Mike Jackness.
Mm-hmm.
Where, he obviously used Amazon as a sales channel 100%, right? But he also had this whole other sales channel with basically Facebook and email marketing, where he created this content. And some of the content was people coloring, right? Like literally videos of people coloring in a coloring book, which to me is like, who watches that? But a lot of people do. But he was able to take the email list plus Facebook from the content that they were putting on the Color It blog. And I don't know I haven't been to Color It in a while, but if you just kind of follow his path, he's a perfect example of how you can take that content, sort of reuse it on a bunch of different channels, and then maximize all of it to drive a customer, whether it's getting people engaged with you on Facebook. So then they're more likely to buy when you launch a product on Amazon, right? That's the whole other component. Like if you have an audience off Amazon, they'll help you launch a product on Amazon because they'll be your early purchasers, right? Mm-hmm. So then there's that whole other component, which is a whole nother podcast. Scott's probably done a couple on that already, but
yes.
But yeah, so he's a good person to sort of look at to see someone who's done it on scale, right? Because I don't know what his email list was when he had his exit, but it was significant, and it helped him on all the other platforms.
Yeah, definitely. And the one thing to keep in mind for anyone who's like, I haven't done this before, every single person who started this started at one spot. 0. They had 0 people on the email list. They had 0 pieces of content, but they started at some point. So all you do is start, because over time it'll build up. And one of the things that I thought was interesting, when Scott Volker spoke at Seller Summit, he showed a graph of Alex Jimenez, who actually is also going to be a speaker at Brand Accelerator Live. And it was like, she's up to now 1 million unique visitors per month. And it's like this graph of all the way from the beginning of when she started. Well, if you can imagine a graph where it's this big wide thing. So for people listening to audio, they can't even see my hand motions. Or
He's making a very big gesture.
Right. So big now. But basically, if you're imagining a graph over time, it's pretty much flush to the bottom for the first 18 months. Basically, it's like when you're driving and it doesn't even register speed. That's what her blog was. It's this hugely successful blog now, but for the first 18 months, it doesn't even move the needle compared to where it is now, where you couldn't even tell that there was actual traffic, but she believed in it and she kept going. And
Well, I think too, just to really quick, is that you don't have to put out content every day. You just have to
right.
put content out consistently. So if it's once a week, once every 2 weeks, as long as you're staying on your consistent pattern, because I think that's what people get freaked out about is like, I am not going to be on Facebook every day doing these things. You don't have to be as long as you're consistent wherever you are.
That's a very good point, because then the algorithms seem to like that, and then also the experience of the people that are watching or
Yeah.
reading or whatever the case is, they seem to like it. And just to touch back on your point about Mike Jackness selling his business, I also had Joe Valley from Quiet Light Brokerage, who's the person who actually helped him sell the business. And what Joe was telling me was that if you're selling a business, it's more attractive to a buyer to have the risk spread out, like not just all on Amazon in the US. That as you do more things, you get a higher multiple. But at the same time too, you're also most likely over time bringing in more profit. So it's basically your business is your profit times a multiple, and that's what it's worth. So you're increasing both sides of the equation when you build up content assets and build an email list and drive sales that way. So it definitely is something. For those of us who aren't into this for just 6 weeks and we just want to make the most sales we can get and get out quickly, but if you're into this for the long haul, this is definitely something you should be doing. And it's something I personally am working on, because I have hired someone. I haven't been the best about getting it consistent, but now Tony's got me excited about what I can do, where this is all going.
Well, and one other thing, and this is like totally, I'm going to just throw like a wrench in everything. To like people are going to be like, no, not another thing.
Wait, you just said everything.
Yeah, I know. So one really great place to grab content, and it's you don't need a lot of people, is a Facebook group. So I don't know how familiar your audience is with the difference between like pages and groups, but a group is a closed part of Facebook. So people have to request to join. Yeah. So you can, take it and make it totally open, and anyone can join. They can invite their friends, which is usually a good thing in the beginning, is letting anybody join that wants to join, as long as you're vetting out all the people in Indonesia that, are spammers. But I know a couple people who have literally, actually, Jen Garza, who I think just did the Ecom podcast, she launched a cookbook off of a Facebook group. So like a traditionally published cookbook, but she drove all on Amazon. So it was, you could buy it at Amazon and Barnes & Noble, things like that. But she created this Facebook group. Now she does keto, which is a, diet way of life sort of thing. But she created a group of keto people. And so she got content for her cookbook off this group, because in the group, people ask questions, and it's basically like a forum. So if you're struggling with like, I don't know what to talk about, I don't know, create a group around your product. So, maybe you sell barware. I don't know anybody who does that. But you create a group around, people who love to drink. So maybe it's like cocktails and recipes and great bars that if you're traveling, whatever it is. So people are going to be like putting content out there all the time. Maybe you sell, kitchen, accessories. So it's a group of like tips in the kitchen, things like that. Well, in that group, your people are going to start commenting and asking questions, and the discussion itself will lend itself to years of content. My brother actually owns a Facebook page for audio engineers. And every single day he posts on the Facebook page a audio setup of like for some concert venue, whatever. Well, the comments and engagement on that page are like higher than like targets, right? Like he literally, yes. So his engagement is ridiculous, because he's got this targeted group of audio engineers that comment on the setup because they don't like it. They don't agree with it. They love it. They've used those speakers. They hate those speakers. Oh my gosh, how did they tape that down? Right? Like and I don't know anything about audio. So audio people are probably like cringing right now over me, but he's taken that Facebook page and actually sold products and marketed to these people, because he knows exactly what they want, because he knows their interaction, he knows what they talk about, and he knows what they're passionate about. So he's taken that data from that group and that page and turned it into figuring out what products to sell, right? So he's done it a little bit in the reverse. But when I see his stats on that page, because people are so passionate about audio setups, which I think is funny in itself, but that's their people, that's their tribe, right? So people are so passionate about cocktails. I mean, their people are crazy passionate about cocktails, right? So, people would want to share recipes, and well, I don't use that whiskey, I use this whiskey. And, I have a friend who has a whiskey blog, and he does it because he loves whiskey, and his blog gets traffic every month, and he just writes about whiskey, you know.
Right, exactly. But
He doesn't even, he doesn't sell anything. Yes.
Everything.
So you can take that Facebook group and get content so if you're struggling, like, hey, I don't know what to write about, I don't know what to talk about, start a group, start a Facebook group and get people in there talking, and within, and invite your friends and family, and then share it out, and, do some sort of fun thing, challenge, giveaway, whatever, to get people engaged with you. And then that group itself will start to generate content for you. So you don't even need to like spend a lot of time trying to figure out what do I talk about, because they're telling you what they want to hear.
Right, exactly. And you can see what are people engaging with the most. So like if it's, settings on an audio panel, well, then you could have like one of those this versus that type of posts, which people search for quite a bit, actually.
Yes.
And Google seems to always, whenever the verses, it seems to like it, and it always suggests that pretty early in the suggested searches. So that gives you something else to talk about, or people just talking about what they hate or whatever. So you talk about that. Maybe you have a more positive spin on it. But like there's all kinds of ways you can get it, and just find ways to have to give people what they're looking for, or at least give them something to engage with, and then build that audience up. And over time, it's something great. So yeah, this has been an awesome conversation, Toni. I really appreciate it.
Sorry to throw that in at the end, but it hit me that like, this is a great way to get content if you're just, because I know a lot of people just get stuck. So if you're stuck and you're like, I just don't know what to write, a Facebook group could be the answer for you. Even if you can get 100 people in it, that's not a lot of people,
And you can even just go on a Facebook group and look and see.
Yes, what talking absolutely. About join one. Yeah, just don't spam it with your products. You'll probably be out of the group.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. That's a big no-no is don't spam the group of like, hey, look at me. Look what I have. Please give me reviews on Amazon.
But that's the thing. That's actually an awesome point, is that if you join a group and you can be an expert in that group, just providing content and answers. Because a lot of people who sell a product, like they are totally into that and they love it. And, they are an expert. That's why they sell that product, because they love it. So if you can go in a group and become an expert, then your name keeps showing up in people's feed and head. And so then when maybe they friend you on Facebook, right? So now you can post something on your personal page that says like, hey, I have a new product launching, whatever. It's sort of just this, it's very, very, it's like a big web, right? But it does work. Because when we launched our product, I actually didn't even launch to my audience. I launched on my personal Facebook page, because I just thought, well, I don't want to launch it to my audience that's trusted me for 10 years and then have them go, what are you trying to sell us? I wanted to test it out first. And we had a successful launch based off my personal Facebook page. But because I had been engaging a lot, it worked. So, and then we were able to move it over and launch to my audience too. But if you can become an expert anywhere, that just gives you kind of street cred for your product, you'd be good.
Right. And expert just really means you're one step ahead of the people that are reading it. It's like that. Remember that movie with Leonardo DiCaprio, Catch Me If You Can?
Yes.
It was like,
I love that movie.
Yeah, it was a great movie. And it's a true story. A guy named Frank Abagnale. And like, people were asking him like, okay, how did you, it was like a high school aged kid.
Yeah.
But he's teaching like some crazy college class is one of the things he was doing. And he said, well, I just read one chapter ahead and I just taught that chapter.
Yeah.
Not that you want to pretend to be a college professor if you're not, but
disclaimer.
Yeah, exactly. Do things legit, but what helps people oftentimes is just one step of where they're at. And oftentimes we don't give ourselves enough credit of what we know.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So if somebody wanted to learn more about you or to follow you in some regards, how would they get a hold of you?
Well, if you want to email me, you can email me at Toni, Toni, at sellersummit.com. And that's a conference that I run, Seller Summit, with my friend Steve Chu. And that's probably the best way to get a hold of me right now. That's the email that I check the most frequently. So yeah, I'm happy to answer if anyone has specific questions. I'm happy to talk people through it. Because I know if you're not doing this already, it's tough to sort of jump in because there's so much out there, and it does feel very discouraging when you spend a lot of time on something and then nobody cares. So,
right.
And that's the other thing. If you have a group of e-commerce people that you mastermind with, or, do anything with, like actually Brand Accelerator is a perfect example of this, right? So you're going to go to a conference, you're going to meet all these people, and these people will seed your group for you. They'll seed your Facebook page for you.
Mm-hmm.
They'll, so take advantage of those relationships that you have in the e-commerce space, because everyone is in this together trying to do similar things, but we can all support each other in that. That's a great place to start, is being at an event and connecting with people that are like, hey, I'm really trying to get my Facebook group off the ground, or this account, or Instagram. I just need people to comment, right? I just need people to go and make it look like it's not just me and my mother.
Right, exactly. Somebody with a different last name.
Yeah, please. So that's a great place, honestly, to go and just do that kind of stuff. But if you want to shoot me an email, I'm happy to answer any specific questions. I know this is like a ton of stuff in a very short amount of time.
Yes. And they can always come to Brand Accelerator Live,
Yes.
where you'll be speaking on this exact topic.
Yes.
And the thing of it is, to your point, like, as we get around other people, things become more real. And so, shameless plug for both of our events, Seller Summit and Brand Accelerator Live, is that oftentimes we get so caught up in our head that everyone else is doing everything exactly the way we have. And like, if we do things differently, it's impossible. But then you meet people like Natalie, like you mentioned before. She doesn't even do Amazon, but she has this successful business doing basically all content related stuff. And she's doing really well at it. And it's like, then you find people and like, wait, if this person's doing that, so
Right.
it can be done. Because, we just get this thing in our head that it can't be done. So anyway, this has been
at Brand Accelerator too. I'm a very visual learner, so I will be sharing a lot of actual examples, so you can sort of, what does this actually look like? I will have a lot of slides that sort of give people that, like, for me, if I can listen to it and I'm like, okay, and then I see it and I'm like, oh, I got you. Like, now I know. So I'll be sharing a lot of that at Brand Accelerator, just so people get a whole visual sort of timeline of how this works.
Exactly. And I think sometimes it is just seeing it visually and live. There's just something about when you're there live. It means sometimes you just pick it up more.
Yeah.
So this has been a great conversation, and I really enjoyed it. And thank you so much for being here today.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Toni.